You know that saying that the only thing that's constant is change itself, and that's what's happening here. So I'm sitting here on the first DIY project we ever did. Well, first and second, because we had to redo it. But this is the path that goes from our patio to our garden beds and the berry patch. My kids are on this every day, multiple times. This path is a heavily trafficked area, and I'm so glad we put it in, and I'm so glad we redid it. We've built this path now twice because the first time we decided that the ground is level enough, and I'm sure we don't need to first add in leveling sand and level anything before adding in the rocks. It should be fine. Guess what? It was not fine. So if you are creating your own path, I highly recommend first leveling the ground a little bit before going ahead and building it all out. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I am here to talk about how we are going to extend this garden path. Over the years, as we've been using it, we noticed that we just kind of jump through an area instead of walking around. So we might as well make it an official part of the garden path, and that's what we're gonna do here. My husband thinks it'll only take a couple of hours, and he already ran to Home Depot for supplies. I am going to set up a tripod and do a quick time lapse. We only have a couple of hours today, so we'll see if he was right or wrong and whether or not we finish.
So as people say, let's get into it. Let's get started. Let's get building. Whatever. Let's go. So our path is lined with these railroad ties. So first things first is getting them into place and making sure that the distance and spacing is the same. The railroad ties seem to do a really good job of keeping the rocks in place and then keeping the mulch away from the rocks. So I like it. It does what it needs to do. You can see the mum is in prime path real estate. So first things first, I do need to go ahead and relocate that. This mum or chrysanthemum is a hillside Sheffield pink mum. It is very, very beautiful. It starts blooming around September-ish and will pretty much go until first frost. I'll insert a picture of what the blooms look like. This is one of those that once it gets a little bit taller and has maybe 5 sets of leaves, I will basically cut it in half. And this helps it get stronger stems so that when things are in bloom, it doesn't flop over as much. Luckily for me, it also has very shallow roots and is very easy to transplant and divide. So this is one of those great plants that you can plant for yourself, and then you'll have enough to share with neighbors and friends later on. Okay, time to get back to the task at hand. To be 100% honest and fair, I really should be having my husband narrate this piece. He doesn't really do the YouTube thing, although he does support me in my crazy whims and projects. But what he is doing, I can share that. So in this step, he is adding in a nail with a string, and then he's going to run that to the other side of the path and repeating the process down there. And this will give you a level line. If you're trying to create a straight line in the garden, that is the best way to do it. Those 2 points and the string will create a level straight line, so you can use that as a guide. I used a pretty wimpy garden twine in this, and we had to redo it a couple of times. So if you have a hardier string, I would recommend using that. Also, this is when my husband let me know that I'm going to have to move the phlox. I'm not terribly happy about that, but if I got to move the phlox, then I will remove part of the phlox. And basically that just means dividing, so I get more phlox. Phlox is an awesome ground cover for sunny spots. It's also very shallow rooted and easy to divide. The only things you really need to divide perennials is a shovel and some courage, because you might feel bad whacking your perennials in half, but they really will be okay as long as you keep them watered. So I'm just shoving in my shovel wherever I need to divide the phlox, and then I'm going around and just lifting that phlox up. And that's it. I have divided my phlox and moved it out of the way of the path. So the stick that my husband has in his hand is called a story stick. And honestly, you should be very proud of me for knowing what that is. It's taken me a long time to get all these names down. Basically, a story stick replaces a ruler. So instead of measuring out the width of the path every time to make sure that it's the same, you place the story stick down, and it's a quick way to measure distance once you know how wide you want something to be. Now that I think about it, maybe I should be using that in planting instead of just using my eyeballs and then rearranging every few years when things grow in, and it wasn't exactly even. I'm not sure I'm going to do justice narrating what my husband is doing right now, but essentially we need to cut into the existing path and remove the timber ties that are there, and also remove the edging, the black edging that's there, so that we can fit in the new path extension. And of course, in the process, we took out the level line. So here's retying number 1. Oops, and retying number 2. I told you we did this way too many times. If I did only a little bit of justice to the narration earlier, I'm really going to do zero justice to the narration now. Woodworking is not my craft or hobby. It is very much my husband's craft and hobby, so I feel like together we make a really cool pair in the garden. But what he's doing is trying to measure out the angle of the existing railroad tie so that we can add in or join in this new extension. As per usual, my husband works with all the fancy power tools and I go and work with a shovel. So I'm going to dig a small trench for this wood to sit in so that it'll be flush and level with the existing path. And as you can see, that string is helping me stay straight so I know exactly where to trench. And moment of truth, is it going to fit? Here we go, and it's in, and it fits. Now I'm going to sprinkle in some YouTube magic and show you the already completed other side. Basically, same steps. Michelle digs a trench, husband does things with angles and wood to make things fit, and Sushi interrupts the making of YouTube videos. If there's anything you can expect from my videos, it's likely Sushi being in them. I'm not sure you can tell, but this is day 2. What I didn't film was scooping out the dirt that is in between the path. We removed about an inch or 2 so that we could put leveling sand down first to ensure things were level before we went ahead and put down any sort of landscape fabric and pebbles. It's much easier to do it this way than redo the path twice. Ask me how I know. All right, now it's landscape etching kit time. These kits are available at almost all the big box stores. I see them everywhere. The purpose of us adding it here is that 1, it matches the rest of the path, and 2, it helps protect the wood. So maybe the wood will last a little bit longer with the plastic versus without. So since we're installing this edging against the wood, you're able to just kind of screw in the edging. Otherwise, you would dig a small trench, place in your edging, and then bury it, and the soil kind of stabilizes the edging and keeps it upright. Next step was hammering in the nails. These are giant nails. Couldn't tell you what they were called, but my husband first drilled pilot holes. Then I very poorly hammered in the nails, and yeah, it was great. The sun is really setting here on day 2, but we opened up the paving or leveling sand and we're spreading this throughout the path. The goal of this is to really just create a level. The sand is fine enough to where it'll go into all those nooks and cranny and create a nice base for then the stone and flagstone. The goal with the paving sand is to really make sure that all the nooks and crannies get filled. So if there's any spots that might be hard to get up against, it's really best to pack in the sand there versus have your mini slate chips fall into those crevices over time as things settle. The final step then is to take that story stick and drag it across the top. This creates a level and even base layer or foundation for the rest of your walkway. And here's the start of day 2. At some point, I hadn't noticed that the tripod got knocked over, and so unfortunately, none of it got filmed. Clearly, your girl is a pro at YouTube. Sorry about that. Luckily, I didn't miss too much in the filming of the tree canopy. The next step was rolling out the landscape fabric. The only place I use landscape fabric ever is in walkways. It is no good in your beds. It's really great in walkways, though. So I rolled out the landscape fabric, and then I'm grabbing flagstone and adding it to the path to weigh it down instead of using the landscape fabric staples. This flagstone I had in other parts of the garden and I'm reusing it here. Otherwise, a great place to look for flagstone is Facebook Marketplace. I can't say this enough. Facebook Marketplace is an awesome way to find landscape materials for much lower than what you are going to pay if you went to a landscape supply store. And then the last step is filling in with slate chips. These slate chips we're reusing. They were originally in the side yard As you may or may not know, we're doing a project over there where we're creating another path. And so these slate chips became homeless and now they're being reused here in this garden path extension project. It's always great when you get to reuse materials or recycle materials from a neighbor or another project. It really keeps the costs low. On this project, our main costs were landscape fabric, edging, and those timbers. Actually, let me also add to that list Bengay, because by the end of this project and the side yard project, I am sore and so done with projects for the season. So this didn't come together in a couple of hours like my husband thought it would. And really it took about 3 days, maybe 2 to 3 hours each day. Yes, I put on the same outfit every single day because I thought I was going to pull it off, as this was just one day. But might as well keep it real with you guys. It took about 6 hours total, which isn't too shabby. So my garden friends, this is where we're going to stop this video. Yes, we do still need to stain the new timbers to match the OG path timbers. We have the stain. We will get to it eventually. But you know how it is. When you're like 90% done with a project, you're on to the next one. So that's kind of where my brain is going. But before I wrap this video up, I would be completely remiss if I didn't say thank you for watching and supporting my channel. Sushi would also like to let you know that if you like this video, she hopes that you hit that like button and that subscribe button so that you can keep up with our gardening shenanigans. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you in the next video.